Hi folks, Jeremy Siskind here. I'm the author of Jazz Piano Fundamentals, Solo Standards for Piano, and of course, the OG, playing solo jazz piano. Head on over to jeremysiskind.com and shop to your heart's content. If you've been following me for a little while, you know that I'm in the midst of doing this every Saturday series where I'm talking about all of the important types of jazz piano voicings to know. And this is, I believe, the 5th installment of the series. And I have 2 different names for this. So tell me which one you like better. On one hand, I want to call it just one-handed comping voicings. On the other hand, I want to call it 4-note, one-handed type AB voicings. I think one-handed comping voicings is a little snappier, but technically, I think we want to call these one-handed 4-note type AB voicings. So let's show how this works. These are going to be voicings where, if you're playing, let's say, in a trio and someone's playing bass, but you're soloing or playing the melody with your right hand, you're going to want to use this kind of voicing with your left hand. That's the general idea. So now you know. No, I'm just kidding. Let's go to our blank page. So these are going to be one-handed comping voicings, and they are the manner in which they're still type AB voicings, like the last 2 videos. This will be the last video about type AB voicings, is because they put the essential tones in the magic range. This is, I think, one of the big rules about tonal voicings. So you want to put the 3rd and 7th or 3rd and 6th in other cases between these 2 notes. And then you're going to add color tones. And here you're going to really specifically add 2 color tones to create a 4-note voicing. I teach both 3 and 4-note voicings. I think in reality, most pianists use 4-note voicings in their left hand more frequently, but not necessarily. But this all has to fit in one hand. So when we're adding these 2 color tones, it's going to be one in between the essential tones and one above. So let's look at how this works. Even though these are going to be played with one hand, I'm going to write them in a grand staff so that we're not reading a ton of ledger lines. So don't get confused. These are one-handed voicings, but just written on a grand staff. So, first thing first, just like always, we want to get our 3rds and 7ths in a good spot. Okay. So then we're going to add 2 color tones. One's going to go between, one's going to go on top. The universal color tones in major keys are the 5th and the 9th. So, I could add the 5th and the 9th here to create a 3, 5, 7, 9 voicing. Good formula to remember. 3, 5, 7, 9 for type A minor chords. I could add the 9th and the 13th here. So I have 7, 9, 3, 13. And then I could add the 13th and the 9th here. 3, 13, 7, and 9. Very classic jazz sound. So that's the process that we're thinking about here. We're putting these 2 essential tones in the magic range, and then one of our color tones goes in between, one goes on top. Now, what are a couple things to watch out for? So for minor chords, we're really going to stick to that 3, 5, 7, and 9. And so our 2 formulas are going to be, did I do that right? No, other way. 3 below 5th. So our 2 formulas for minor chords are going to be 3, 5, 7, 9 and 7, 9, 3, 5. in dominant and major chords, we're going to prefer to use the 13th rather than the 5th. So we're going to use the 3rd, the 7th, the 9th, and the 13th. And this is going to add more color, and it's going to prevent us from having what we call a stack of thirds, right? If we're playing C major, I could play the 3rd, 5th, 7th, and 9th. Not going to sound horrible, but it feels a little bit basic because we're just stacking up the notes in order, basically. So for dominant and major chords, this is what that's supposed to say over there. I'm doing great, guys. Don't worry about me. Our type A formula is going to be 3, 13, 7, 9. And our type B formula is going to be 7, 9, 3, 13. Although you can use the 5th there if you prefer. Okay. So let's do the same thing starting on type B using this sense of formulas now. Using this process of formulas. So I'm going to start with my 7th and 3rd, 3rd and 7th, 7th and 3rd. And now I can fill in. So for the minor chord, it's going to be 7, 9, 3, 5. So let's fill in the 9th and the 5th. For the dominant chord, it's going to be 3, 13, 7, 9. 13th is E, 9th is A. And then for the major chord, it's going to be 7, 9, 3, 13. One common question is around sixth chords. So if the chord is C6, how am I going to form this kind of a voicing? And so what we're going to do is we're going to use the 5th instead of the 13th. So our formula would become 3, 5, 6, 9, or 6, 9, 3, 13. Why are we going to use the 6th instead of the 13th? Why are we going to use the 5th instead of the 13th? Well, the 6th is the same pitch as the 13th. So we want to have 4 different pitches. All right, let's take just a little time out for a sidebar on the 6th and the 13th. People might say, well, what's going on? Why is it the 13th sometimes and the 6th other times? The answer is we consider this note the 6th when it replaces the 7th. So it's the 6th when it is the essential tone. And this happens a lot if the root is in the melody because that major 7th and the root clash. And so we choose the 6th instead. If it's functioning as a color tone and there's already a 7th in the chord, then we're going to call that note the same pitch, the 13th. So hopefully that answers the question for you. Okay, so let's go over to what a difference a day makes. And I'm going to do the version with melody so that we can make sure that we stay beneath the melody, because that'll be a little bit interesting, a bit added layer of fun. So we can choose whether to start with type A or type B. In this case, if we start with type A, so if we start 3, 5, 7, 9, we're going to be above the melody with the chord. So I would prefer here to start with type B. And our formula here is 7, 9, 3, 5. And by the way, it's like a universal formula for type B. Type A kind of changes, but other than the 13th potentially being on top, that's a good formula for type B. Okay, so then we're going to go to type A. It's going to be 3, 13, 7, 9. I might realistically use a flat 9 if I were actually playing. I'm getting awfully low. The melody's really low, right? I think it's too low for me. So what would I actually do if I were playing this melody? What I probably would do is I would jump up, I would incorporate that C as the third of my voicing, and I would probably just play the 7th and the 9th there. So I might go down to just 3 or 4 or even 2, as you can see here, note voicings, instead of having all 4 notes. Again, if I use a 4th note here, it would be like, it would be the 9th. It would be D or D flat. So I'm gonna leave that top note up, and that sharp 9, sorry, the E flat is gonna basically become the 4th note of the voice. All right, so now my melody's going a little higher, so I can get back to just thinking really formulaically. Formulaically, is that a word? So this is going to be really the same as the previous line. These PDFs are available. I'm linking to them in the description of the videos if you want it. So I might choose to move up midway through this measure, because it just sounds a little nicer up there. It gets crunchy as we get low. I know I'm using a lot of ledger lines now. I'll tell you what, I'll write up here. So this is 3, 13, 7, 9, flat 13, 3, 9, 7, and then just right back to where it came from. All right, so now I've got a half diminished chord. I would really treat this just like a minor chord. So I'm gonna stack up 3, 5, 7, 9, like a type A minor chord. And then that's gonna resolve to 7, 9, 3, flat 13. If you wanna know more about the color tones that are appropriate for each kind of chord, you can look at at last week's video, number 4 of this series, where I talk about that a little bit. Those 3, 5, 6. So I'm treating this as a C minor 6 and then 9. We're making good progress, you guys. We're doing it. Okay, so I'm gonna stick with type A here because we're going from one kind of C chord to another. Oops, I wrote 5th one. I meant the 13th. So that D natural in that last chord is getting awfully close to the melody, so I might just make that a 3-note chord. Or I could use the 5th on top, which I think would actually be quite lovely. Let's make this a flat 13 over here so it's a little more colorful. Now you might be wondering, what about like these 2 notes come below the top note of the voicing? And I'd probably just lift up my hand. I'd make sure I'm not comping simultaneously to that chord. Okay, so that's 7, 9, 3, 5, and then it's going to be 3, 13, 7, 9. We're getting right to the bottom of the range. It's going to be a little crunchy down there, but I think probably okay. So let's hear what this sounds like. I think pretty cool. Let's do it one more time. those are some really standard, good sounding, but professional level one-handed comping voicings. These voicings are covered in Jazz Piano Fundamentals Book 2, the purple book. If you want to look at them in a little bit more detail, a little bit more slowly, and see some more examples and some practice strategies. All right. Cool. I think that's it for today. Next week, the installment will be about shout chord, or some people call it block chord kind of playing. So we're going to be using these 4-note left-handed voicings as the left-hand part for that. So you're already halfway there. Make sure to tune in. And this is, I think this is number 5 in the series. So say something about the number 5 in your comment. See y'all later.